And we're starting off with NXT, as Ilja Dragunov defended his NXT championship against Ridge Holland, and their match ended in a no contest, with the champion being stretchered out of the arena. During the show, Holland confronted the Mad Dragon and challenged him for a title match, saying that he was prepared to go through everyone in the back if needed. Holland didn't want to simply be handed a title shot, but that's exactly what he was given anyway, and during the match, Holland hit Dragunov with either a Cradle DDT or a modified Brainbuster. That kept the champion down, and WWE officials came to check on him and ruled that Dragunov was hurt and couldn't continue. The crowd was dead silent and looked on worried, as did Holland, who was in the ring, listening on as Ilja screamed in pain as the officials checked on him. Dragunov was placed in a neck brace and stretchered to the back, and the match ended in a no contest, and at this time, Ilja is still the recognized WWE NXT champion. In a short clip that went viral, Holland can be seen watching in horror as Dragunov is taken away and can be heard yelling, "Why always me?" at the referee. This week's episode was taped last week since WWE has no live television shows scheduled from December 19th to 25th due to the holidays, and this segment has left many fans angry. Holland was the one who delivered the belly-to-belly suplex to Big E in March 2022 that broke the New Day star's neck, though Big E said he has no problem with Ridge, calling it an accident. Holland received tons of hate messages on Twitter after news broke that Dragunov suffered an injury, and thankfully, Corey Brennan of Fightful would confirm that this is just an angle and not real. Dragunov and Holland both gave compelling performances on the latest episode of NXT, and the Fightful author also asked fans to leave Ridge Holland alone in the wake of this angle. Earlier this year, Holland revealed that he'd received death threats following the Big E injury, which is completely out of line, and we'll have to see where this angle goes from here. Back when he was a fully fledged heel, MJF would often tease that he would be leaving AEW to join WWE, but now that he's a face, this idea isn't mentioned as much, or at all, on TV. Last month, it was reported that MJF had re-signed with AEW, with a source stating that there had been zero talks with WWE, but that's not how MJF is outlining things. Speaking to the SI Media podcast, MJF said he's never lied and that his contract is still set to expire on January 1st and compared his situation to that of Cody Rhodes. MJF stated that it was reported in early 2022 that Rhodes had secretly re-signed a contract with AEW, but mere weeks later he showed up in WWE, adding that fans leak what they want to be true. The AEW World Champion said that his focus right now is on World's End, but after that, it's time he assesses the situation and made it clear he's not re-signed yet. If this is the case, then MJF could be a WWE superstar in due time. And on the podcast, the AEW World Champion dismissed the idea that WWE would, or even could, tone him down. He said, "I just don't know how the you put a leash on me, and I swear to God that's my honest opinion. I don't think anybody can hold me back from being the monster I am. I think my career trajectory in any company is going to be exactly the same. Do I think some aspects AEW fits me like a glove more so than anywhere else? Yeah, I do. Could an argument be made the other way around? Yeah, I'm sure. These are all things I have to think about. What I do know, whatever company I pick, it will be because it feels right and it means the most to me." While MJF is telling everyone who will listen that he hasn't re-signed with AEW, many aren't convinced, including those in WWE. One higher-up told House of Wrestling that this feels like nothing but a storyline, with another saying they've heard MJF re-signed as far back as before All Out 2022 in September of last year. They went on to say that Friedman is locked in and got a huge deal when he renegotiated his contract with Tony Khan last year, so he shouldn't be expected to leave on January 1st. MJF has become one of the biggest names in wrestling today in a handful of years, and at his young age, has years left in his career, but will those years be spent in WWE? Let us know down below. For some time, fans have speculated that Charlotte Flair could sign with AEW, especially as her husband Andrade El Idolo has been part of the company for some time. Not too long ago, Charlotte's father Rick also signed with Tony Khan, but don't expect Charlotte to become all elite like the Nature Boy or Andrade. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reports that Flair recently agreed to a contract extension with WWE, one that will keep her with the promotion for several more years. This news surfaced after Medusa mentioned it on her podcast, and there was a delay in disseminating this information within the company. This contract extension is the first of the TKO era, as it happened before the reported extensions of Rey and Dominic Mysterio, and it's interesting that Flair was the first star TKO had its eye on. Despite her new contract, Flair is expected to be out of action for 9 months due to a recent injury, and we wouldn't be surprised if WWE is already adding on extra time to this new deal. Back to NXT, as Dragon Lee was back on the show this week with his North American Championship and had another successful title defense on the show. Since coming to WWE NXT, Joe Coffey has impressed alongside Gallus in the past, and while the faction has been quiet as of late, that changed last night. During the show, Damon Kemp's faction confronted Dragon Lee and challenged him to a match, but said he wouldn't know which member of the group Lee would be facing until later on. Before the match could begin, Charlie Dempsey was revealed to be Lee's opponent, but things took a turn when Coffey came out and inserted himself into the match. Midway through the triple threat though, Joe Gacy appeared from under the ring and dragged Coffey underneath, and Lee picked up the win over Dempsey to retain the gold. Dragon Lee is proving himself to be a fighting champion with a string of title defenses recently. He might beat Wes Lee's record for most title defenses at this rate. But what did you make of this match? Sound off in the comments section down below. In women's action, the referee barely rang the bell before Tiffany, Stratton, and Fallon Henley were brawling in a physical contest before Henley flipped Stratton into a surprise pinfall. Post-match, Stratton beat down on Henley and dumped trash on her, and while the pair have chemistry to spare, it's a shame this battle was so short. At least this short match allows the pair to save their big spots for a bigger match down the line, and with the post-match attack, expect a stipulation grudge match in the coming weeks. Henley winning was a nice surprise, but she needs to win the decisive match to rise up the ranks and give Stratton a fitting send-off on her way to the main roster and the Women's Royal Rumble match. For decades, Samoa Joe has made a name for himself in wrestling, whether it's part of WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, TNA Wrestling, or somewhere else. Joe has held gold wherever he's gone, and recently was the longest reigning ROH World Television Champion. But just how much longer does the veteran plan on wrestling? Speaking with Adrian Hernandez, Joe was asked if he'll keep wrestling until he physically can't, and revealed that he plans on stopping sooner than that. He said, "Oh no, I'll probably stop wrestling way before then. I've been really fortunate. When I came off the concussion, I took 2 years off to really get everything back in order, and in that time too, just in the recovery process, really changed a lot of my training and changed a lot of things around that have benefited me to a great amount health-wise, and I feel good right now. As far as where the train will end, I'll let it play out a little bit more, but I will say this, I definitely have more than a handful of good years left in me, and beyond that, I'm excited to, if we're gonna go out, we're gonna go out with a bang, so it'll be interesting to see how these next few years play out." We don't know when exactly Samoa Joe plans on ending his career, but we know he plans to add the AEW World Championship to his resume before he calls it quits. Joe will challenge MJF in next week's AEW World's End pay-per-view, and what do you hope to see from Joe before he retires from wrestling? Let us know in the comments. We've got some unfortunate news regarding NWA wrestler Garrison Creed and indie wrestler Flash Thompson, who recently suffered a great loss and are asking for help. As revealed by the GoFundMe page set up by Thompson, a fire in their apartment building has destroyed their home, and the pair were initially looking for $2,000. The money would have helped the pair find somewhere to stay temporarily, but this goal has already been smashed and has already reached close to $3,000. This is a devastating time for the pair, and we sincerely hope they can bounce back from this fire, and hopefully this money will help the duo stay afloat as they look for more permanent accommodation. Alexa Bliss is one of the most recognized female wrestlers in the world today, but unfortunately the former women's champion has had to deal with her fair share of obsessed fans in the past. Bliss's name and image is often used by scammers trying to secure money from gullible fans, and that has happened yet again with one fan who accused Bliss of being a thief. The fan, known as William, claimed that he had been speaking to Bliss for years and recently received a check for $6,700, only to learn that the check was a fake and said Bliss was a thief. Not only that, but William also shared a photo of a marriage certificate, as he was convinced that he and Bliss had been husband and wife since 2021, which is of course not the case. The WWE superstar then politely explained to William that he had been the victim of a scam and that they have not been speaking to one another, and encouraged him to be safe. Bliss is, of course, married to Ryan Cabrera, and the pair recently welcomed a baby girl into the world, and it shows that if marrying your favorite wrestler seems too good to be true, it probably is. Over to Impact Wrestling now, and in addition to bringing in stars from outside ahead of the TNA relaunch, the company is looking to keep many under contract, and that includes Brian Myers. After his 2020 release from WWE, the former Kurt Hawkins would make his return to Impact under his real name and has been one of the most reliable performers for the promotion. This week it was confirmed by the promotion that Myers had signed a new deal with the company, and when speaking to Sports Illustrated, Myers said the decision to re-sign was pretty easy for me. During this most recent run with Impact, Myers has accomplished much bigger things than he did in WWE, including a reign as Digital Media Champion. Myers is also challenged for the World and Tag Team titles, and with the veteran set to be part of TNA Wrestling, expect to see plenty more of him on TV in the coming years. In 2022, Marvin Jackson attended WrestleMania 38 that April, but in January of this year, filed a lawsuit claiming lost hearing in his left ear due to the pyrotechnics at the show. The suit sought a jury trial and more than $1 million in relief, covering damages, penalties, costs, expenses, prejudgment interest, and attorney's fees, and now there's been an update. PW Insider reports that Jackson will have the opportunity to argue for continuation in early 2024, despite having the suit dismissed by the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas Fort Worth Division. Jackson will be able to make his argument before the court during the week of February 5th, and this comes after the initial suit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it couldn't be revived in the same court. Jackson filed an appeal, and WWE argued in February of this year that fans had to agree to terms and conditions, including arbitration over legal issues, before purchasing WrestleMania tickets online. Jackson argued then that he was the mere recipient of the ticket, and since he had not purchased the ticket, had not agreed to such terms, and despite requesting an oral hearing, this wasn't permitted. The court ordered both parties to present supplemental material on potential arbitration, citing a legal precedent involving a cruise line, but Jackson's side argued against arbitration. His legal representative said that they had sufficient evidence to dispute an arbitration agreement, though the court ruled that while Jackson's nephew bought the ticket, he was still bound by the legal agreement by attending the show. The original lawsuit accused WWE of negligence, gross negligence, and strict liability, claiming WWE was aware of the risks associated with pyrotechnics. In terms of WWE's liability, Jackson contended that the use of indoor pyrotechnics constituted an abnormally dangerous activity, making WWE strictly liable for damages to his hearing. The suit also emphasized the risk of harm to invitees due to the proximity, indoor nature, and inherent danger of pyrotechnics that fans often face. The lawsuit argued that the potential harm from loud blasts in an indoor facility outweighed the marginal value of indoor pyrotechnic displays to the entertainment aspect of a show. The court will reconsider these arguments during the upcoming hearing, and we'll keep a close eye on this case for any further updates. On this week's Raw, Kofi Kingston was handing out presents dressed as Santa Claus, but in an odd move, the former WWE champion was on his own for the segment. We know that Big E couldn't be on Raw as he's still recovering from his neck injury, and we now know that Xavier Woods couldn't make the show as he is also injured, as PW Insider reports. While we have not confirmed the nature of the issue, we are told that Woods is banged up and has been taken off of the road to heal up. We are told that Woods was in Birmingham, Alabama a few weeks ago as well. New Day was being advertised for the Raw brand holiday tour dates post-Christmas, but now that has been changed to just Kofi Kingston. Woods being in Birmingham suggests that he visited the clinic of Dr. James Andrews, and that clinic has hosted several WWE superstars that have required help and sometimes surgeries. We'll make sure to keep an eye on this story for updates, as we don't know what exactly is wrong with Woods, but we're wishing him the very best at this time. In the men's breakout tournament, Lexis King talked a big game before he headed to the ring, and despite being thrown around by Lennox, King hit the coronation to get the win. This was a fine match, clearly carried by the more veteran performer. It can be considered a success, as Lennox could come out with some buzz. Post-match, Trey Bearhill arrived with a steel chair to run off King, who is the obvious favorite to win following his surprise entry into the tournament, but this tournament has many unknowns. Lennox did not do much in this match, but he was crisp with his offense, and if he continues to improve his repertoire, could be a breakout star in the next couple of years. Bearhill is in an odd position of being out of the tournament, but has a clearer direction than many in the tournament, and hopefully there's a plan for him to get some spotlight out of working with King. In tag team action, Kiana James and Izzi Dame defeated Jacy James and Thea Hale, and Dame looked better here than she did in the women's breakout tournament. With the right conditioning, Dame could be a key powerhouse heavy in the future, much in the mold of Raquel Rodriguez, and she's one to keep your eye on. During the Attitude Era, Jason Sensation made a handful of appearances for WWF, and with his spot-on impressions of talent, the comedian quickly became a favorite among fans. From Bret and Owen Hart to Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, Jason was able to parody some of the top stars at the time, but he's now making headlines for a very sad reason. On Tuesday morning, wrestling manager Kimberly Ford disclosed that Sensation would undergo double bypass heart surgery on the same day, urging fans to keep him in their thoughts. In a video shared shortly after, Jason revealed from his hospital bed that his surgery had been rescheduled and now would not be happening until after Christmas. Doctors postponed the procedure after an emergency 10-hour surgery on another patient prevented Jason Sensation from undergoing the operation, and Jason maintained a positive outlook. Jason has survived 2 previous heart attacks and being struck by a car, but now must face this heart bypass surgery, and we're wishing him the absolute best ahead of this operation. Now, Hulk Hogan has led an incredible and controversial life, and as reported last week, his life was set to be studied on an episode of Vice's 9 Lives Of documentary series. The show focuses on celebrities who have been given multiple second chances, and while the show will premiere next month, it likely won't feature the life of the 2-time Hall of Famer. A recent commercial promoting the show no longer features clips of the Hogan episode or any mentions of the Hulkster, suggesting that his episode has been pulled from the lineup. It hasn't been confirmed if the Hogan episode has been pulled, but all signs are pointing that way, and at this time, there's no word on why his episode would be scrapped. The series will follow names like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Pee Wee Herman, both of whom made WWE appearances, and other episodes will look at Dave Chappelle, Howard Stern, Tiger Woods, South Park, and more. As for the Hogan episode, we'll have to see if it appears on the show set to premiere on January 10th at 10 p.m., but don't be surprised if Hogan's controversies don't go under the microscope. Tavion Heights defeated Luca Crusifino to advance in the men's breakout tournament, and while NXT fans had not gotten a chance to see Heights before, he made an impression thanks to his Greco-Roman wrestling background. This match was largely a squash, with Crusifino only getting a handful of shots in, and Heights will have a much bigger challenge in Obafemi next week. Nikkita Lyons picked up an impressive win over Tatum Paxley on this week's NXT, but with her oddball character, Paxley is standing out when she can't win a match. One of Lyons' strikes hits hard, causing Paxley to bleed from her nose, and we wouldn't be surprised if the Lioness is an NXT Women's Champion in the making. Gallus ran over Hank Walker and Tank Ledger on NXT, with Mark Coffey and Wolfgang hitting the Gallus gate for the win, and Hank and Tank remain an interesting team without serious backing. While they are powerhouses with speed that could find their footing with a few wins, this week was about keeping Gallus's momentum, and Wolfgang and Mark looked solid as a duo. After a series of losses, Gallus has been needing a strong showing, and while it would have been nice to get some build towards this match, at least the right team won. And that was NXT. And what did you make of the show? Let us know down below. When CM Punk joined AEW in 2021, fans were eager to see him feud with MJF, and sure enough, the 2 gifted talkers would enter a program that saw some excellent promos. The pair had 2 matches, with MJF being the first wrestler to beat Punk in AEW, but despite this feud, the AEW World Champion could not be happier for his former colleague. On the SI Media podcast, MJF said his feud with Punk was the greatest feud of the modern era, and added that if Punk's happy in WWE, then he's happy for him. MJF added that wrestling is like any other sport, which sees players traded to different teams all the time, and said that AEW and Punk have both done what they feel is in their best interests. Whether MJF will one day work with Punk again in WWE, that remains to be seen. But whatever the future holds, the AEW champion is happy that Punk is doing what he thinks is right. Right now, Impact Wrestling is making a lot of waves ahead of their relaunch as TNA next month, with Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., and Kushida all set to be part of the relaunch. Recently, Scott D'Amore teased a monumental signing for the upcoming Hard to Kill pay-per-view on January 13th, which left fans wondering if an ex-WWE star is on his way to the company. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported that Impact/TNA has set aside a budget so they can actually sign a major free agent next year, but there's no confirmation on who it'll be. Names like Dolph Ziggler, Mustafa Ali, and Matt Riddle have been thrown around as potential TNA signings, and any big signing would certainly draw attention to the new TNA. Ultimately, fans will have to wait until TNA Hard to Kill 2024 to know just who exactly is signing with the company, and who would you like to see join? Leave your views in the comments down below. And we're ending today with Wyndham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt, who tragically passed away in August of this year at the age of 36. Rotunda leaves behind his fiancée JoJo Offerman, as well as his 4 children, and WWE are doing what they can to help those closest to the 3-time world champion. Speaking to Wrestling Talk, Bray's father, WWE legend Mike Rotunda, shared that his son has been put on a Legends contract with WWE, meaning that merchandise of his will continue to be sold. Rotunda explained that all proceeds raised from Wyatt merch will go towards JoJo and Bray's children, and was emotional as he spoke about missing his son every day. Mike added that Wyndham and JoJo were supposed to have gotten married this month, and later added that WWE has more new merchandise about Bray Wyatt in the works. On WWE Shop, a note on pages for Wyatt merch confirms that proceeds will go towards JoJo and his children, and our thoughts remain with those who knew Wyndham best at this sad time.